Passport, check. Forms, check. NIE appointment, good luck with that. Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. I'm Lorcan Doherty, and today we're talking about one of those issues that never seems to go away, the seemingly impossible task that immigrants to Spain face in getting appointments for our NIE, or NIE, or TIE, TA. I'm joined today by Uriel Escudé. Hello.
Hello, Lorcan. Very excited to be here after a few months working on this. So, finally here.
Yeah, and loads of people got in touch with us, didn't they?
Absolutely. It's been great.
We're going to be hearing from them very shortly. Don't forget, if you are listening to us, you can also watch Filling the Sink as well. It's on YouTube, Spotify, and on catalannews.com. Uriel, every moving to Barcelona or moving to Spain Facebook group, blog, subreddit is inundated with the same question. How can I get a NIE appointment? Well, I've been through it myself a few years ago now, but I wanted to ask you, as a Catalan, as someone from here, did you have any idea about the situation that people face when they come here? And also, if you, for example, have to renew your ID, your Spanish ID, do you have the same problems?
No to both. So the first one, if I wasn't working here and I hadn't had any relations with international family, friends, I wouldn't know that this was an issue. And then we don't have the same issue with the Spanish ID. There is some black market for Spanish ID, but generally it works very well. You've got plenty of appointments. If you may be very tight and you haven't planned it well in advance, maybe you'll want to go to the black market. But usually it's not something you'd have to do. The DGT, the traffic service, is very busy. A lot of similar problems there.
I've had my dealings with them too.
Yeah, I imagine. And also the CEPE for obtaining benefits, for example. Those are also very busy. There are huge backlogs and limited citas previas appointments. But you won't see it as widespread as it is with the extranjería, the NIEs and TIEs.
Extranjería, the immigration offices,
exactly.
Basically. Okay, we've mentioned cita previas. So that basically means appointments. We're going to hear a lot about them. We've mentioned NIE, so literally foreign identity number. Now, the thing about this is it's a number. It's not a document or a card, although you can get documents and cards with that number on them. So it's a little bit confusing. So we'll try and clear it up a little bit. The NIE then, or NIE, you might call it as well. It's assigned by Spanish authorities to every foreigner once and for life. It's not a residency permit. It's not a work permit. It's used for tax purposes. And regardless of your nationality, if you're from the EU or from outside the EU, even if you're not living here, but if you have some sort of, involvement with the Spanish government, that could be buying property from abroad or any kind of tax procedures at all, you need this number, the NIE. Then we've got the TA, which is a card, the foreigner identity card.
So it's the equivalent to the Spanish ID, the Spanish DNI. It's a photo card, photo ID, and you need fingerprints for that. We'll hear about fingerprints a lot. It's not mandatory for everyone, so EU citizens don't need it, and it's not usual for any EU citizens to get the TA. They just have the NIE, and that's fine. And then for non-EU citizens, they do need this, and it's probably one of the things that people struggle the more with.
And to get any of these numbers, documents, you need one of these infamous cita previas, don't you?
Yeah, it literally means appointment. For immigration services, you'll always need one, so you cannot go in person, show up there. They won't let you in if you don't have a cita previa booked online. You obtain them through the government's Sede Electrónica, the digital website. It's this white and orange website that you'll probably remember. Extranjería here, immigration services, they fall under the Ministry of Inclusion, Social Security and Migration. But its operations work under the Ministry of Interior, so it's a mixed power. That's why you'll see police officers.
And you might need a few appointments as well as you go through the process.
Several, especially if you're a family, you'll need one appointment per person, each member of the family, including children.
I mean, the system should work fine. It's an online system. You book an appointment, you go along to the appointment. How does it actually work then in reality?
So it's extremely difficult to get a cita previa. It's a nightmare for many, and you have to do this several times, right? There's very little official information, and it's only in Spanish, which makes it harder.
And it's a kind of very dense legalese Spanish as well, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's why many people resort to third parties, lawyers, gestores, which would be tax advisors, to do it for them. And then many people goes to the black market to obtain the infamous citas previas.
And this is affecting a lot of people. There isn't official data on the number of NIEs or TAs issued every year. We've seen some estimates of 1.5 million, which seems about right when you look at migration numbers. In Catalonia in 2024, the foreign-born population increased by over 120,000. So that's the minimum, really, number of people that will need NIEs. And we've talked about this before on Catalan News on Fill in the Sink. We did a podcast back in 2022. We thought it was time to revisit it because it's such an issue that people get in touch with us about all the time. We put a call out to our audience to see whether it's still happening. And I think, to our surprise, you could say it's maybe even gotten worse.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got dozens of messages, and everyone, people who's done this for years, say it's now even harder than it was before. So yeah, definitely the issue continues to be an issue, and it's harder for many.
Let's take a listen now to some of the people that we've spoken to about this issue over the last few weeks.
In August 2024, me and my wife decided to move to Spain from Singapore. We didn't really expect any problems when it comes to bureaucratic processes, because we've lived in Singapore, other countries before, so we're kind of ready for anything and everything. And at first it actually went very smoothly. We got our digital certs. Didn't take much, I think I just got maybe 3 cita previas there, but it was fine, really, no problems at all. But then the final boss was to get the TIE, right? And that's where all the problems started. I was checking the police website every day, not joking, every day, multiple times a day. Not a single cita for a month and a half. It was very frustrating, to be fair. I felt like I can't do anything, it's just not there, no matter what I do, right, what I check. I even, started checking in other places like Terrassa, Madrid, whatever. I thought maybe I should just go there and get my TIE, but was not available even there. And the worst part, right, I needed 2, right? I needed one for myself, one for my wife.
Every time I changed my residence card, renew my residence card, I had to give fingerprints and get a cita, get an appointment for that. And everyone knows that. Everyone knows that it is one of the most difficult things. And each year, it's getting more difficult.
Okay, we think we're experts, and we sit down as a family. I have teenagers, and the 4 of us, we've been told what time of day, what part of the week the appointments are released. We sit as a family of 4, and with all of our laptops, all of our phones, we try and get appointments. The website's timeout, it says unable, error, you've tried too many times. We've tried it with VPNs, not VPNs, and it's hours and hours and hours, and the attorney's trying, and it's just, you can't even get the appointments, and you get maybe an appointment for 1 person instead of 4. And so that's been really tricky and frustrating.
I personally never paid. I spent time for this little silly thing. I mean, during a week or weeks, different times in a day, different days in a week. I kept trying and many times I found. I mean, the system shows at this police station there is an appointment available. And when you click on it and when you start filling out your details, personal details, it disappears. It disappears in front of your eyes. No disponible. Well, just a few seconds ago it was there, and it was not only 1 slot. Let's say, a dozen, okay? A few slots, but did all of them disappear in a few seconds? Yes, it does. So then you get suspicious. But even for getting ticket for a concert, when you found a ticket, when you are filling out your details, the system doesn't let anyone else to buy it. They keep that ticket for a few seconds for your name. I don't understand how a state system, when you find something, when you are filling out your details, they don't keep it a few seconds for you. How come they let the people with a bad will to capture that. I don't understand that.
We could get, maybe for our regresso, you got one appointment. We, as a family of 4, took the train outside of town. I went, spoke to them politely in Spanish and said, we could only get one appointment. Can you help all 4 of us? They argued with us for 20 minutes and would help just one of us. And so one at a time, we're able to do this. And, you know, I understand they sell appointments. And I jokingly said to the police officer, I said, well, I would have paid for an appointment. He said, it's illegal. Don't do that. I said, I would never. And I understand it doesn't work, but you think that way.
In my close circle of friends, many times my friends give up and they just go and buy it. And I understand them. They have other things to do. I mean, they just, you know, they can't just, you know, spend time all week, you know, every day, different times in a day. This appointment is your right, and someone is stealing it. And I don't understand how the authorities let it happen, how they don't chase these people, and how they let the system open to be manipulated. But I'm an insisting person. I kept trying and trying. At the end, I found one. But for a day that I don't want to, or for a time, you don't have a choice. You know, you just get whatever it's available there.
Eventually, we pretty much gave up and decided to pay a company, and that company, I'm not gonna name it, but they did it super quick. Just took them one week. In 1 week, they got us a cita, and we got our TIE months later, just like that.
And I paid 65 just for my authorization and 55 for my renewal appointment, and similar costs for Sophia, for our daughter. It was about 55, 65 just to book her appointment.
July, August, and I'm boiling outside, and I finally talked to a police officer and he said, what happens if I don't get this piece of paper? I have to go to London on Sunday for my daughter. And he said, well, they'd have to be really rude to not let you back in the country. And I said, but I don't want to travel without that paperwork. What's so troubling is the uncertainty, and that you want to do everything by the book, you want to follow the rules, and we don't know, we can't leave the country because we might not be let back in, even though in your mind, you know, we're doing everything right.
It seemed like the process was super simple. Like once I got the cita, I went there, took maybe 10 minutes for everything. It was so easy, it felt like it's something that should be doable online and something that probably should not involve the police at all.
For my daughter's renewal, which is the one that I helped her with, is obviously it needs the Libro da Familia, which we don't have because we're not born in Spain. So the next best thing is we have her birth certificate, but it needs to be translated within 3 months and apostilled. So of course I had to take her South African birth certificate, get it translated, apostilled, and take it along for the appointment. And on the day it wasn't even looked at.
The cherry on the cake is when you go to the appointment. Obviously, depending, Alex and I both had totally different experiences in our appointments as well. It takes 10 minutes, fingerprints, and they send you out the door and say, see you in 30 days. So there's a big build-up and a lot of frustration and anxiety leading up to it. And then on the day, there's that elation that actually it wasn't as bad as you'd necessarily had heard from other people's experiences. So obviously I'd had separate appointments booked for the regresso as well as for the renewal, which were only 3 days apart. So one on a Thursday, one on a Tuesday. Went through to Villanova. Obviously, the officer that assisted me, she was lovely, asked if I had any evidence of my appointment that I had booked on Tuesday. And there I sat with my big file with all my papers. And of course, I'd paid the tassa, I had everything ready. And she asked for the document just as evidence that obviously I had done it. And within 5-10 minutes, I had both documents sitting in front of me. And I actually started crying, because I am that person, because it was such a shock that it was just done. She was like, no, it's fine. You know, I just processed both documents for me. So unfortunately, I didn't then people attend the appointment that I paid for on the Tuesday.
But money wasted, eh?
But money wasted, but time saved. So yeah, it was such a simple thing to just sit and do while we were there together. So,
if I could add to that, I did try the same sort of tactic with my daughter's renewal. I asked the police officer while we're here, could he do a regresso for her? He couldn't on the day, of course. He just said, no, come back, make another appointment for that. So that was, we didn't win as well as Michelle won on that day.
Thanks to Ruslan, Alex and Michelle, Metahan and Kate for speaking with us, and to the dozens of people who emailed and texted to share your stories with us. We couldn't speak to everyone in the end, just too many people. But, listening to their testimonies, shock, frustration, disbelief, and it brings me back to when I was doing that,
And also I think many of the people affected, they kind of blame themselves maybe for not knowing the language enough or not dedicating enough time to it. Or maybe they think they went last minute and, it's their fault for not planning ahead. Not at all, because I had to deal with this as well for my partner a few years ago. And also I thought because I'm a local, I'll be able to understand this perfectly and, I'll manage. I'll find a cita previa. And no, we had to pay as well. We didn't have to get a lawyer or things like that. And also it was just to get the NIE. But it was really hard, even for a local.
So why are there no citas then? Is it lack of resources? Something else?
It's hard to know because we don't know how many appointments are released a week or a month. The last figure we have was from that podcast we did in 2022 when we spoke to Carlos Prieto, now the Spanish government delegate in Catalonia, and the people responsible for this service. And he said they released 1,000 appointments per day in the whole Barcelona area, which is a good amount of appointments, I would say.
We reckon, we've done some rough maths, that there's probably about 56,000 appointments a month across Catalonia. But the problem is not the amount of appointments. The problem is, are they reaching the people who need to make them?
Exactly. And again, it's frustrating that the administration blames the user maybe for not being patient, not trying hard enough, when in fact we've tried ourselves the last few weeks many times and we were never able to get a cita previa.
Including at the Thursday 3 o'clock time, which apparently is when the new appointments are released as well. So then people end up turning to illegal appointments, basically, because these appointments by law should be free. People end up paying for them. There are gangs across Spain dedicated to reselling appointments, and you can find them. Well, they're easy to find online, aren't they?
They're very easy to find online. There are group chats. There are Facebook groups. They're publicly available. It's not hard to find them. There have been cases of fraud as well, of people buying cita previas and then going to Extranjería office, and that cita was false. But generally, it's a service, from what we've been told, that it works well. So you can get an illegal cita previa, but you'll get the cita previa. So someone's getting those citas.
And it's very hard to prove, but what seems to be happening is that people use bots to book up all the appointments and then resell them. And previously we spoke to a hacker who created his own bot, made it publicly available for anyone to use and set up so that you could kind of fight back against the bots. But we got in touch with him again, and a few months later he took it down because people were, instead of just using to get themselves an appointment, they were actually using to hoover up the appointments and sell them on again. And he was like, well, this is not what I've made this bot for, so I'm going to take it.
In fact, he told us that the bot was being used by lawyers and gestores to get appointments for their clients, because we assume that there's no other way for them as well to get appointments than using a bot.
To see how bots work and what can be done to prevent them, we spoke to René Serral. He's a UPC professor and a researcher at InLab FIB Cybersecurity Center.
Like any type of bot, this is ultimately an application that, in some way, simulates a user clicking on different parts of a website in order to perform actions. The difference is that instead of simulating the clicks themselves, it behaves as if the user had directly sent all the information the system requires, all at once. And since it's an automated system, it can be repeated hundreds or even thousands of times per second without major issues. It's a machine, so it doesn't get tired. It can run all day, 24 hours a day. If it detects that one slot is already taken, it simply skips it and requests another one. Since the website is always the same, it can interpret it perfectly and automatically and continuously request appointments. It will always be faster than a human because it doesn't need to move the mouse, fill in the fields and submit the form. Instead, it sends the entire data package all at once. Depending on how a website is implemented, it can be easier or harder to create a bot that bypasses these protections. But nowadays, you don't need to be an expert to build one. And with AI, it's become even easier since it can help you develop it. There are many websites that have control mechanisms to prevent bots. CAPTCHA is the easiest and most common one, those little puzzles you'll have seen. Some systems can also detect bots because they act too quickly. CAPTCHAs are very easy to implement because they're already built. You just have to plug them in and use them. All these bot defense mechanisms are easy to implement. The problem is that for some websites, adding them means changing the workflow they already have in place, which involves an additional cost they're not willing to assume. In the end, it depends on whether they see it as a problem or not. Also, verifying a Spanish ID is very easy because the letter is calculated from the numbers in the ID itself. This means that bots can check whether an ID has been entered correctly simply by validating the letter. In fact, it is very easy to generate valid IDs, even of people who are no longer alive. This is easy to bypass, but at least it still acts as a basic barrier against bots. The real problem is with passports, because they don't have this type of validation, as they rely on biometric data. However, implementing some form of passport verification on a website would not be that difficult. It would be doable, but again, it would significantly increase the cost of implementing this service. The administration manages an enormous number of services. Digitizing them is very costly, which makes it understandable that problems arise. It's a process that will improve gradually. For me, the important thing is that they're starting to unify services. Otherwise, they would have to fix and digitize services one by one, which would be endless. That said, could they do better? Clearly, yes.
Thanks very much to René Serral. The elephant in the room, Oriol, why has this not been fixed?
Different reasons. I think incompetence, number one, but also lack of political will and lack of resources, for sure. To give you an example, and this is not for NIE appointments, but for asylum seekers, they had the same issue with the whole broken appointment system. And instead of coming up with a technological fix, what they did was going back to the beginning of the 20th century and saying, let's go back to phone and emails, right? So yeah.
That's one way to get rid of the bots, isn't it?
Exactly, the only way. Instead of fixing the bots, we'll just go back to phones and emails. To bring a bit of optimism to the conversation, there are some solutions maybe this year because the Spanish government is actually come up with a new digital centralized platform, which we have very little information of. But there was a pilot in Castellón, south of Catalonia, and it worked well, and it would be like the current traffic app or CatSalut health applications where everything's unified there. Your identity is well verified, whether you're using an ID or a passport. So there's no way that bots can break that.
I like your optimism, Oriol. We'll see how that works out.
We'll see.
Natalia Caicedo is a professor at the University of Barcelona in constitutional law. She has been speaking to us about how Spain's immigration system fails to uphold legal rights, from appointment bots to opaque procedures and institutional neglect.
The administration contracts a third company to provide the appointment service. They issue a public tender, and within the tender conditions, they could clearly require controls to prevent the use of bots. But they do not do so. Why? Because economic criteria are given priority. There is a legal principle stating that the administration must provide all the necessary resources and tools so that citizens can access public services. If we look at healthcare or education, it is very easy to obtain an appointment. The steps to follow and the deadlines are clearly established. But this does not happen with migration procedures. Instead, the approach is to control and make access more difficult. This can be seen in the appointment system, but also in many other areas. For example, at immigration offices, there is a private security service at the entrance, controlling who is allowed to enter and who is not. This would be unthinkable in any other public service. Forms are another example. There are no physical forms in migration services. In any other public service, you are given a form. They provide copies and they even help you fill it out. Here, you have to pay for photocopies. Sometimes, the required forms or information about the taxes are not even available on the website. As a result, people end up hiring a lawyer to handle the process. It is unthinkable that we would need a lawyer for any other public service procedure. Then there is the issue of language. Everything is in Spanish and the vocabulary is very technical. It is a literal reproduction of the legislation and regulations, which makes it obvious that you need a lawyer to understand it. There is no translation to help citizens understand it. The administration intentionally chooses not to improve the service. They have the tools to do so, but they don't, because of the idea that migrants, when they arrive, need to face many difficulties. It is like a kind of tool they have to pay to reach the same position as nationals. They cannot have it easier, especially because of this collective image that people come here to use the resources. They have to make it difficult for them, and one way to do so is by implementing very difficult migration procedures. It is also very difficult for people to hold the administration accountable. There are mechanisms to do so, but it is especially hard in migration because of the profile of the population and their concerns about regularizing their status. They worry that if they made a complaint, they might not receive what they are waiting for, even though this is not actually the case in practice. Still, they want to avoid problems, and their daily lives and circumstances make it even harder for them to seek accountability. The staff in migration services often feel like third-category civil servants. They usually work in poor facilities with little light and limited resources to do their job. When they start there, the first thing they want is to leave. It is considered the worst place to work in the civil service, especially because of the lack of resources. This also means that people you encounter there often have little interest in helping you. The administration is fully aware of all this, and without a doubt, institutional racism lies at the heart of it.
Thanks very much to Natalia for speaking to us. Uriel, what about going after the people that are supposedly making these bots?
From time to time, there are stories of police making arrests, but it's usually very hard to first find them and then prove that they're committing a crime. What they're doing usually falls under fraud or cybercrime, but it's hard to prove. And also, one thing that Natalia mentioned is that there are so many people involved and so many layers that it's hard to find them, and also they have usually to commit another crime apart from this one. For example, many of the gangs that are arrested, they usually create also they sell fake citas.
So you turn up on the day having paid for an appointment and you don't even have an appointment at the end of it.
Basically, and they charge for that so they can go after the cybercrime and the fraud crimes. But if they don't do that, it's hard to prove.
I think for EU immigrants, trying to get an appointment for the NIE is probably the hardest part of the process. But for many others, there are other layers and levels of bureaucracy and things like that. Isn't that right, Uriel?
Absolutely. And for many people to reach this stage, it's already very satisfying, and they're very happy to be dealing with the website and everything, because it means they've gone through so many things already, such as the empadronamiento, and we're talking especially for...
Which is just say registering with your local council, basically.
Exactly. And this is usually for irregular migrants or people with regular situations. But before they can start dealing with migration service, they first need to get their papers in line and demonstrate so many other things. So they've gone a long way until they can reach this struggle. And then on the other side, there's people who have the means and the privilege to just pay for lawyers and gestores to do it, which should not be the case either. But again, it shows the different layers of migration that we have and how for all of them, it's a barrier.
Well, we've got one more interview to squeeze in now, and it's a really interesting one. This is Carmen Juares. She's an anti-racist activist and social educator. Her story is very interesting. She arrived in Barcelona in 2005, fleeing violence in Honduras. And she spent 6 years working as a live-in carer, on duty 24 hours a day, caring for an elderly woman with dementia. And now she fights to defend the rights of migrants, and she works with the Migra Studium Foundation. This is Carmen Juares.
Migrants who arrive here must first enroll in the municipal register, which can be very difficult to do because it's hard for many to demonstrate a fixed residence. Once they have that, they need to apply for a reception certificate. To obtain this, they must complete 90 hours of Catalan and Spanish language courses, as well as a course on Catalan society and another on labor rights. However, there are not enough of these courses available. In addition, most of the courses are offered from Monday to Friday. Many migrants, especially women, work as live-in carers, often 24 hours a day, and may only be able to leave their workplace one Saturday per month. The current course schedule does not take this into account. Men, too, often work in construction or agriculture, with very intensive workdays from Monday to Friday, leaving them with no time to attend these training courses. Once they obtain their reception certificate, they must be registered for 2 years before they can begin any other procedures with the immigration office. Even then, many problems remain. In many cases, people have all the required documentation, but responses take an extremely long time due to a lack of staff and investment in the offices. Deadlines are often not respected. Many people are left waiting and waiting, which leads to desperation and serious emotional distress. Applicants have to book appointments, which has become nearly impossible, forcing many to pay intermediaries. From beginning to end, the entire process involves significant suffering and repeated violations of rights. Many people live in constant anxiety, fearing they will be sent back to square one. In fact, it is possible to fall into an irregular administrative situation simply because you are unable to obtain a fingerprint appointment. Many people do not have access to the internet or a computer, which makes it much harder to obtain appointments. Others work extremely long hours and have no time to regularly check for appointments. This makes an already complex process even more difficult. These barriers disproportionately affect non-EU migrants. This situation has been ongoing since at least 2018, when we and other organizations already denounced it. It is not new, and it has been ongoing for many years. Getting their papers in order is a continuous obstacle course. Every step of the process reminds them that they are treated as second-class citizens. In fact, society has very little knowledge of these realities. When we go to high schools to give talks, many students tell us that migrants arrive here already have everything: papers, healthcare, and benefits. This is simply not true. In reality, the opposite is the case.
Carmen Juares, thanks to her. For anyone listening to the podcast or watching the podcast, what advice can we give them?
Little advice, and it's really frustrating. I'm really sorry. I would love to have the perfect tip to break the system, but we don't. We would say, first, if you're coming from abroad and you have a job here, ask your employer, because that would help a lot. Usually employers, they can help and they can even do it.
Yeah, another thing is if you're abroad, you could, before you move here, you can try the Spanish embassy in your country if it has one.
Absolutely.
We've heard stories of that.
Yeah.
The appointments are a little bit easier to get.
Speeding it up. Then if you have the means and you can pay for a lawyer or a gestor because you don't want to waste your a lot of time on this, then that's another option. But if you, like we did, on principle, don't want to pay a gestor or lawyer, you can try yourself. And there's little advice we can give you apart from what everyone says.
Thursday, 3 p.m.
Exactly.
seems to be the time.
Thursday, 3 p.m.
And patience, I would say, as well.
And also try the whole Barcelona, Catalonia area. So if you have a car and you're able to travel, maybe you can try Girona, Tarragona, Lleida. That might help a little bit.
That's us for today. Thanks very much for listening and for watching. Thanks again to all the guests and our Catalan News followers who we heard from today. Thanks to you, Uriol.
Cheers, Lorcan.
Remember, you can subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next month with another episode for you. Until then, from me, Lorcan Doherty, and all of us here at Catalan News, que vagi molt bé. Adeu.